Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we are all about emotional regulation this week. We've got a great week in store for you, so if you like what I have to say, hit subscribe so that you can keep up to date with us. Every day is a new discussion. An emotional regulation week, we're looking at the different aspects of emotional dysregulation in the family and how invalidating environments in the family and how our sibling interactions, internal family systems kind of create the way we are and how we act or react. Then we're just going to look at other invalidating environments, and there's 7 characteristics or 7 types of invalidating environments. We're going to explore all of those. We're going to look at individuation and individualization. What's the difference and what's the similarities, and how does that help us to get out of these invalidating environments? We're going to look at and understand what codependency is, and then we're going to round out the week with how this all relates, emotional regulation with success. So stay tuned, hit that like button, and here we go. I'm really excited. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. And today we're talking about individualization or individuation from invalidation. And so we are all about emotional regulation this week. And the secret is you have to individuate. What's happening is we're creating these enmeshments because there's anxieties brewing and causing people to shut down with themselves, and therefore shutting and projecting onto you and shutting you down. And as they're doing that, you're taking on that negative energy, and then you are projecting it out to others and creating filters in your life and perceived realities that really find validation for the experience, but it wasn't yours to have in the first place. It was put on you. So it's kind of like if negative emotions is like chewing gum, like ABC chewing gum, right? It's like if somebody came in and like, this doesn't have flavor, and put it in your little palm of your hand, would you just hold on to it? And you're like, oh, well, thanks. This is gross. Do you know how much chewing gum you would have in your hand at the end of the day, at the end of the week? Now go 30, 40, 50, 60 years. It's a lot of gum that we hold on to, and we don't even realize we're just holding on to other people's already been chewed gum. It's pretty gross. But that's what our mind does, is we're little hoarders of negative energy, and we're taking this on because we think, as a survival technique, which we learned about last week, we think that this is what we need because our brain is just trying to make sense of everything. It's just trying to make sense of it. And it makes sense of it in the strangest ways, but that is what it is, and that is for everybody. So no one is unique or different. This is how it goes. So how are we individuating from emotionally invalidating environments? Well, it's a transformational journey. It does take a while, and there's 5 stages that we will be looking at. The first one is the shadow stage, which represents kind of this unconscious part of ourselves. It's where a lot of repression is taking place. It's where we have kind of these desires, these fears, these traits that we find unacceptable. And it involves recognizing and confronting the shadow. The truth will set you free. It's hard to do this, and so it's not going to be easy, but as you find compassion, and 5-minute meditations does a compassion meditation, so take a look at that. As you find compassion for yourself, and you find the reoccurring patterns that you take on in all of your interactions with people, you start to see your half of the dynamic. So when I do couples therapy, specifically couples therapy, sometimes individuals will come in and it's like, like, am I just a flame and I find every moth? Like, why is it that whether it is an admin, whether it's a roommate, whether it's a best friend, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, like, it doesn't matter. I feel like I'm doing the same thing in all of these. Like, these people are just such egomaniacs and they're walking all over me. What am I doing wrong? Well, you hold 100% of what your half of the dynamic. So going to therapy, seeking coaching is a great way to find what your half of the dynamic is. And doing that shadow work will help you to do that. I do offer 15 minutes of wellness insight, and that's just the stuff that we talk about, and really good diagnostically. Tell me a 5-minute stories. I'll tell you 10 minutes of what everyone's role is in that story and diagnostically where it all came from. I'm really, I promise you, I'm not patting myself on the back. I am very humble, but I do know my clinical stuff. It is my passion. So if you want to know why people are behaving or you are behaving or acting or reacting the way you do, please let me know. I would love to help you. Back to our 5 stages of individuation, the persona stage. This is the mask that we wear to navigate social roles and expectations. So this is how we are kind of looking at what our identity is and what it isn't, and how we really get stuck in these external influences versus really connecting with our authentic self. So the Key Step series is really focused on this persona stage and really trying to break away from that external focus and really looking at our internal self. So click in the video description and go get the stage 1, which is actually building your internal self. We're doing this so that we can encourage authenticity and let go of the things that do not serve us. It identifies in this time where we want to grow is identify areas in the persona that feels performative or misaligned, so that when I talk about productive versus purpose-driven, that's that persona stage, is we're trying to get back to allowing life to serve us and not us kind of thinking and people-pleasing and doing the things that don't reflect our core values and our needs. The next stage is the anime or animus stage. And this involves integrating the feminine and masculine aspects within our psyche. And so it really represents the unconscious complementary qualities of an individual. So it allows us to balance and balance emotional and rational aspects to find that wise mind. And it deepens an understanding of our relationships and the inner dynamics that are happening in our mind. When we're growing through this, we're really embracing the traits or interests traditionally associated with the opposite gender. We're practicing self-reflection on emotional responses and behaviors, and we're exploring creative or meditative activities to connect with this unconscious self. The next is the self stage, and that is the totality of the psyche. And it's conscious, it's unconscious, it's masculine, it is feminine, it's shadow, and it is light. It involves striving for wholeness and balance. And we're integrating all aspects of self and fostering harmony amongst ourselves. And we're really trying to encourage a sense of purpose. And we're going back to that sense of purpose driven. As we are growing, we're trying to find mindfulness to keep in a present state. And we're trying to find more connections to the spiritual or philosophical world outside of us to really understand our place in the world. And then we get to a transcendent stage, which is the final stage, involving transcending the ego and connecting to some greater, something bigger and greater other than ourselves. And so I often talk about this need for spirituality in psychology. And the reason of that is life is chaotic and we are not in control of our outcomes. And connecting to this greater awareness of consciousness, spirituality, and humanity helps us to really put into perspective how short our lifespan is and how long eternity is. And so being meditative and mindful consistently will help you to maintain and gain into this state. Finding altruistic ways and being able to serve others really helps you to be in this transcendent state. And then finding a sense of legacy. So as we are growing older, we are constantly trying to find a sense of legacy in our lives. Like, what does it mean? Like, we're here for a minute and then what? So we're always trying to figure out what it is, because most people do not know their great-great-grandparents. They probably don't even know their names, but that is the truth of how diminishing life is and how important it is to do what will help you to build your eternal life. And so we do this through building unshakable boundaries. And unshakable boundaries is being very, very clear of what's inside the circle. All of our core beliefs and values is inside the circle, and everything else is outside the circle. We harness and we love and we nurture what's inside the circle. That is us. That is us. And everything outside of the circle, we ignore, ready for extinction. It does not serve us. So there's no reason, send it down the river. And to identify your core values, go to, it was like 9 weeks ago, in the beginning of this whole series, we did success and what it is and what it isn't. So go back to that video to understand and to do. We have a bunch of exercises on picturing your perfect day and finding and identifying what your core values are. Trauma bonds. Trauma bonds are this understanding that there are actual emotional connections that are formed in relationships because of cycles of abuse, manipulation, or emotional neglect. And despite the harm, these bonds create powerful attachment that makes leaving the relationship incredibly challenging. And sometimes we trauma bond because we had the same trauma together. And sometimes we trauma bond because we feel like this is the only person that will understand us. Either way, being aware of these trauma bonds is important. And the core mechanisms of building trauma bonds is this intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement is, in behavior therapy, the strongest way to build addiction, right? It's the one-armed bandit. Doesn't matter if you put $1 in and you only get 50 cents out. All the bills and whistles say, I don't even care. I just lost 50% of my investment. I love this. I'm going to put another $1 in. And I may put in $10 and only get a quarter out, but I'm still going to do it because I know that there is positive reinforcement, and I want to do everything I can to find that positive reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement, it's unpredictable and it only strengthens attachment. And when you are in a traumatized state, you have ability to be present and connected, and you have ability to be very distant and not connected. And that time where you are connected, you're just like, give me more. You can do this. It happens a lot, especially, I can change him. It happens a lot. People will say, I am not emotionally available to be in a relationship right now. And like a moth to a flame, I can change you. It's going to be so wonderful. Shared vulnerability, as you're telling about these, most horrible and stressful times in your life, you're finding yourself more open than you've ever been before. And you're finding yourself able to share. Why? Because when somebody shares and has humility to share with you, then you feel like you want to have humility and share with them. So that shared vulnerability really locks in a complicatedness. And you have to realize that when you are missing one of those core constructs, feeling isolated comes with trauma. Feeling isolated comes with trauma. So we expect that as we feel diminished, that we are going to want to connect with somebody who feels like they've been through it before. And then when people know that you have been in a space of trauma and abuse, if this is an offender, then they are more likely to take on an offender role. And if you are in a role of either victim or enabler, then you will maintain a victim or enabler role for that offender. And it's all because of these unhealed past wounds. When we have these unhealed wounds, we have these doors open. When stress comes in and that door is open, we're hovering in it. That past is now occupying our present. It is. And so we're building these perceived realities, and we're just getting stuck in these perceived realities. And we have somebody right there to reinforce it. So it makes it really hard to know what is real and what we've created as a result of our stress and our trauma. And so that's why we stay in it, is because we have built these realities and we feel like this is the only thing that we have. So how do we break free? Oh, let go of the shackles. I'm out of here, man. Recognize the bond, understand and accept there's no shame in the game. Everybody will get into these at some point in time in their life. We have Munchausen syndrome, we have Stockholm syndrome, like we have all these things where people have done it for so long when they've been in these high stress situation. It's bound to repeat itself. There's a name for it. So name, don't blame, do not shame, and reconnect with reality. Ground in the present. Allow life to serve you. Find where you are at in the here and now. Build self-awareness. Continue to find that sense of being here and now. Ground. Find your connectedness. Find your valid data points. Find support. Click 15-minute free wellness insight. I'm happy to begin your journey of support. Then find your self-healing. We have saying goodbye to bad brain, which is a big part of what this is. And we have the Key Step series. So we have part 1 that has been out, which is creating those values and what success is and how you get stuck in these toxic environments. And then part 2 will be coming out shortly. I'm just finishing up edits now. All of it is built. I'm just finishing up edits as we just jumped into the group series. And I have 2 success groups. I have one for men and one for women, just to focus on relationships and how our day-to-day lives and workings, are using these emotional dysregulation techniques. And then break free. Find a path of empowerment. Find your emotional sovereignty. You don't have to stay in these bonds, and these bonds do not need to define you. So having emotional sovereignty allows you to take full ownership of your emotions and regulate them effectively to respond to life's challenges from a place of self-awareness and agency. So instead of saying this has happened to me and I'm helpless and hopeless, we're saying this happened to me. It is what it is. Life is chaotic. I have no control over the outcomes, but I know that for me, I choose to put a process in place. And I choose to put a process in place of healing that allows me to be open, to be available to others who need to heal as well and can learn from my story. And it allows me to be open for others who have healed and can help me heal. That's the agency, and empowering yourself to put yourself out there and find those processes of healing. Resiliency is a big part of healing, and resiliency is being able to find healthy coping skills to deal with stress, setbacks, and interpersonal conflict. And so finding self-regulation, mindfulness, setting boundaries, excuse me, having self-compassion and developing emotional intelligence will help you build some of that sovereignty and some of that resiliency. Protective factors are the supportive relationships and environmental conditions that allow you to manage stress. And so a lot of times, especially as parents are going through divorce, they're like, you know, my spouse is a freaking psychopath. I can't believe that I have children with him. He's gonna ruin them. She's gonna ruin them. I say you have no control over life. Life is chaotic, and you have bred life. So you have bred chaos. It is what it is. We accept that. And so all we can do, the only control we have, is to create protective factors and resiliency. You cannot control other people. You control your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And the more that you build resiliency and protective factors for yourself or your children, the more that they have to be able to overcome the chaos of life. And the first thing to do is have positive, strong relationships. Keep an open line of communication going with yourself. Remember the trust feedback loop, as well as with others. Having that accountability and vulnerability is really important. These success groups really allow for people to have that freedom to interchange as they're learning their own emotional regulation. Foster emotional regulation skills. Understand what works for you and what doesn't. Find your line. How far do you want to get? How close do you want to get to that line? I always look at the gas tank when I talk about that too, right? Know where your tank is, what your triggers are, and where your tank is when those triggers come up. If you have a high stress work environment and you know that you are depleted when you come home and you have nothing to give to your family when you are depleted, then find your line. So instead of saying yes to everything, say, okay, if I say yes to 10 things, I am out, I'm spent, I'm just yelling at my spouse and my kids. So my line is probably, a 7. I'm going to try to get to a 6. I'll say yes to 6 things and then I'm out. I'm just going to say I can't do it. I can get it to tomorrow if it's still important. And so I'm starting to set clear boundaries because I know when my tank is empty. And for a lot of people, the tank is empty at half a tank, right? You see half a tank, I need to go get more gas. Other people, you need the light to come on. You're kind of stalling, like trying to get, like, come on, it's only a little bit longer. Like you are on fumes getting that next gas station. Know where you are and what it is indicative for you when you are coming into a sense of empty and need to refill, and what your line is when it comes to depletion, so that you don't get close to your line, so you have more to give for other people. Create stable, predictable environments. The more predictable, life is chaotic and our minds are naturally anxious. So the more predictable your day is through those atomic habits, the easier it is to navigate and the less anxiety producing you will be. Find your sense of purpose and meaning. Connect back with that key steps. Part 1, is all about finding your sense of purpose and meaning. Connecting to only making decisions on what serves you for what your values and beliefs are. Create resiliency in your mind and body by creating activities, making sure that you are creating opportunities to burn the cortisol and be able to find resiliency beyond just the mental. Spend that mental energy physically. It really does help you. And always know what your pivot points are. You always want to know where your pivot points are. And as you do this, we get into how to heal the wound. So this is your protection. This is your foundation. If you're still finding you need to heal wounds, I really do recommend going to a therapist or counselor or do a coach. Click and get a free 15-minute wellness insight. But if you're still like, I am person, hear me roar, you can heal your inner wounds through reparenting techniques. Understanding and accepting what the capacity of your parents were, and then starting to nurture your own inner security, heal your own emotional wounds, foster your own self-love, and develop healthy boundaries. So as you find your inner child and you nurture it, you find that you have value. You let go of the value of your family that has created their behaviors, right? You're individuating from them. They are not you. Their behaviors, their thoughts, their feelings are not your value. Stop holding the shame and guilt for other people's wrongdoings, and finding the awareness of what is yours and what is everybody else, and setting those clear boundaries of what is in my circle and what is the things that I need to let go of. A lot to digest here at Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Please feel free to ask questions, to get that free wellness insight. We have some valuable tools that I'm adding onto my blog, so go check it out. I am Jennifer Evans. Thank you.